Okay, this conversation is fantastic. Jim Morris, he calls himself an architect of impact and human connection. What does that mean? That means so much. This man embodies what our world needs from the leaders that are within it, from all of us, what it is to truly create human connection and lead from that place and create impact. He has designed his life around this mission. He empowers people to do the same. He's an incredible speaker. He is an incredible leader. And what I appreciate the most about him is that he's so vulnerable in his story, vulnerable in the lessons, so that he can impact you and awaken you. So I'm telling you, this conversation is fantastic. Listen to the end because it grows, it expands, it gets better and better. So please share this episode with someone you feel needs this message because it's a profound one. All right, let's get started. Welcome to the Wisdom from Within podcast. My name is Jen Axe, and I am your host. This is where mindset meets body set, where we access both so that we can make the most genuine, authentic, empowered impact on those we love and those we serve. Let's get started. I'm really so happy to be here with you. I'm so happy that we've connected through a community that's so supportive of, leadership presence in this world. And I love that you call yourself an architect of impact and human connection. I want to know what that means. Tell us what that means. Welcome, 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 Jim. Appreciate you.
Thank you. I'm grateful to be here. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
For me, I think impact has two opportunities to affect others.
Mm.
The first opportunity is to affect them in a negative way, and the second is to affect them in a positive way. I don't believe our words, our actions, the things we do have neutrality,
Mm-hmm.
right? Someone is perceived, someone is judged, someone is analyzed based on the emotions that are being felt from either what they've said to you, what they've done to you, what they plan on doing. And I've learned over time that your words matter, your actions matter. And if we can just take one step back in a world where we're positioned to rush, we're positioned to do things at the highest speed, and just think about what the impact is on the things you do or the things you say.
Mm-hmm.
So by architecting that opportunity, I do that in many different ways, but first within myself.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody's perfect, and I'm far from it, and I make plenty of mistakes. But
Mm-hmm.
if I can, show up with integrity, own those things, and focus on the person rather than the thing or the strategy or the plan, and just really center into them, then my goal is to impact people in a positive way.
Yeah, I love that so much. How do you said you do that for yourself, like you architect or shape your experiences. Can you give us an example of what this looks like?
So I had a conference about 2 years ago, and I was a little frustrated with someone I was working with.
Mhm.
And they came to speak, and they had a great audience, and they ended up doing a great speech. But the lead up, the commitment, the integrity, the time that was brokered to lead up to the event, to market the event, to position it to impact the most people possible, it was lacking on their end. And it was contractual. There was an agreement laid out, bullet, line item 8, 9, 10 type of thing.
Yeah.
And I was frustrated, and I had to sit with myself before I made the phone call and put myself in their shoes.
Mhm.
It sounds cliche when you say that, but oftentimes we're living up here
Yeah.
rather than right here in our
Yeah.
heart.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, it seems out of character. It seems, maybe there's a reason. So let me remove my emotion and start the call with, what do you need? How
Mhm.
can I help you?"
Right.
And in that first 15 seconds of that conversation, they had informed me that they were going through a divorce.
Mm.
And again, thinking of me and thinking of what I needed, my first reaction was, okay, everybody's going through something, but you still didn't do the things that I paid you lots and lots of money to do.
Right, right.
And I had to hold and reclaim
Mm.
myself because I wanted to provide a positive experience, positive impact. And so that initial reaction wasn't, okay, I understand. What about me?
Right,
It
right.
was, let's talk about you in that moment. Let's shift the conversation from 30 minutes of me to 20 minutes of you.
Mm, yeah.
And then let's talk about how I can help you accomplish those goals. I
Mhm.
think we face these opportunities in when we connect with people, when we work with people, when we contract people, where we forget that they're human as well. We forget
Right.
to ask questions.
Yeah.
And it usually happens when money's exchanged and there is pieces of paper that outline the expectations. But for
Yeah.
me, what I've learned is if I can just pause
Mhm.
and put myself truly in their shoes and understand and ask questions, then what starts to happen is I start to practice this thing I call compassionate curiosity.
Mhm.
And everybody talks about curiosity in sales and building connection, but it's not just rambling or asking questions or using scripts. It's actively listening, actively putting yourself in their position, their shoes, to then bring compassion to your curiosity. And I think
Yeah,
when
I
you
love
bring
that.
compassion to your curiosity,
Mhm.
that's where deep human connection starts to thrive.
I love I love this and I appreciate this so much because as you know, part of what I teach is all about emotional intelligence and the 5 pillars of emotional intelligence and how essential that is for leadership. Leadership not just in the corporate world, but leadership as parents. Leadership if you're influencing another human being, you're a leader. And so to influence deeply and make real impact, like you're saying, that emotional piece needs to be there. That awareness needs to be there. And I love that. And I appreciate you because that is not out there nearly enough. So I'm curious, a couple things come to mind. One is it hard to shift so that woman says to you, I'm going through a divorce within the first 15 seconds of your conversation? Are you like, okay, we're going to get into this a little bit because you know in your heart that this piece of connection is important? How is that transition, moving back into what needs to happen? That first part is essential because, right, establishing trust is what you're doing. And then they're going to perform for you and really provide for what you need so much even greater because of this piece that you're providing. But I'm just curious about that transition and what goes through your mind when you're holding both at one time.
Well, I think when you set an expectation for a phone call, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure when you go into it, right? Because we are humans and perspective changes and different people hear certain things and they say, if you want something done, you've got to tell someone 7 times, 7 different ways,
Right.
right? So perception's real, but I think it really goes back to, if I can have a foundation of reminding myself that I'm a human and they're a human,
Yeah.
what does that human need in that moment? And to remove the pressure of me
Mhm.
having the perfect words, the
Mhm.
perfect questions, scenarios.
Yeah.
I think back of, until I was about 28, I was such a nervous, anxiety driven person to where I would ask a question and then someone would start to answer it and I'd cut them off and I'd start to talk again.
Mhm.
And when I realized that the deep root of where that was coming from was because I didn't love and trust myself, I realized that that was just a trigger for me being uncomfortable to feel like I had to talk, to feel like I had to navigate every conversation. I had to control the conversations, the interactions. And once I started to love myself and trust myself, I was in that position where I may not know what to say in that
Mm.
moment. I may need to take a
Mhm.
deep breath. I may
Mhm.
need to pause
Yeah.
and gather my thoughts. So, not rushing through it during that transition is extremely important. Understanding and knowing that you have self love, you are a smart person, you are intellectual, you are on the call to provide good and positive impact
Right.
has really allowed me to sit back and be okay with a 10-second pause of
Yeah.
thinking without speaking first.
Uh, this is so good. I really just love this so much. I'm curious about, were you always, well, it said you said up until your 20s, like you had this anxiety, and I so get that. And I think so many people feel that way. How did you make that transition? What came into your life that you were like, okay, this needs to shift? And how did you make that shift?
One of the reasons why I love keynote speaking and I throw tons of my own events every year is because I was at a conference in Long Beach, California, and I heard a podcast with Ed Milet and Brad Lee
Mhm.
5 years prior to that event. And Brad Lee talked about how you need to love yourself in order to love others at a
Mm.
high level. And I
Mhm.
brushed it off. It didn't mean much to me in the moment. But when I heard him say that again from stage, I was in a different moment. I was in a different season, a different timeline of my life. And
Mhm.
um, I realized that I didn't like what I saw in the mirror. You know, it's funny. I had a sticky note on my mirror for probably 10 years in my bathroom.
Mm.
And the sticky note was a little off center from the mirror to the right. And it said, do what 90% of people don't normally do. And it was my little mantra, my little, recentering.
Yep.
But what I realized was every time I looked in the mirror, I didn't want to look at myself. And that sticky note was actually a deflection and an excuse for me to not look at myself because I didn't love what I saw. I didn't
Mm.
love who I was. There was
Mhm.
always something pulling at me to be better, to grow, to face some of the demons, some of the fears, some of the things that I wasn't proud of. So when I heard him say that again in that season, I sat down after his speech was over and I started to write in my notes in my cell phone, Ellie will be like dot dot dot. And Ellie was my daughter, my first child who I was having in about 40, 50 days from that conference.
Mm.
And I started to write down all these things. Ellie will be like someone who eats healthy. Ellie will be like someone who gives the shirt off her back if she has another shirt at home. Ellie will be like someone who lives with high levels of integrity. Ellie will be like someone who
Wow.
shows up and loves on others in the moment that they need it most. And I went through this and I wrote down probably 60 or 70 Ellie will be like. And
Oh.
I started to read through them and I started to cry. And the reason why I was crying was because I wasn't half of the things that I wanted my daughter to be like. So I leave the conference because I'm shattered at this point. I have no interest in listening to the rest of the speakers, although they were probably great and there was some big names and I remember someone's like, "Dude, you're leaving like before Eric Thomas is speaking," and I was like, I got what I needed in that moment at that
Yeah.
conference. Fast forward, I'm walking down the street in Long Beach. I have no idea where I am. I'm reading these Ellie will be likes. I'm adding to them, and I'm just pouring crying. Right? I'm 6'5", 230, in a full suit, walking these dark streets of Long Beach,
Ah.
and not in the best neighborhood. Right? Like I can
Right.
hear chatter, and I can hear people arguing across the street, and um, in that moment, I started to visualize the changes that I needed to be and who I wanted to become.
Mm.
And I was hungry, right? We were in the conference all day, and I'm like, "Okay, well, let me go sit down and really put myself together." And I turn and I look over, and there's a little Italian restaurant called Ellie's,
No.
and it's packed. There's a
What?
line outside, all the patio seating, everybody. So I
Oh,
walk up and I'm like, "Table for 1," as I'm still crying, and I'm like and
wow.
I sit on the curb. She's like, "It's gonna be an hour," and I sit on the curb, and I'm like, "I will sit here as long as I need. I will wait to eat this food. Like, this is where I'm eating. This is clearly meant to be." And I sit down on the curb by myself. I pull out my phone, go back to that list, and I hear, "Jim, your table's ready." So I sit down, I order pasta, all this food, and it's funny because I can only imagine what everybody else was looking at. They were looking at me pouring tears into my pasta, just eating
Oh my
pasta by myself.
oh,
And it was the most impactful moment in my life because I started the journey to love myself. I started the journey to trust myself. I started the journey to really become a better person so I could help navigate life, work with other people in hopes that they love themselves because I knew that I could never follow my dreams at that point in time, and I was gonna start to, so that way my daughter, my kids, my wife would look at me and say, "Daddy, you followed your dreams, I wanna follow mine."
mm, wow. That is a gorgeous first of all, have you told that story from stage many times?
A couple times,
Oh,
yeah,
it's so
yeah,
good. It's so good, and you tell it so well, obviously, because it's your story. Incredibly beautiful, incredibly courageous of you to pay attention. So many of us don't pay attention. We ignore what we're feeling, and my work is about the body's intelligence and being able to listen and navigate the signals and the nudges and understand that it's all wise and intelligent and can be our guiding light if we choose to listen. And you chose and to listen. And look where it took you. And then it took you to this divine intervention and message and presence with this restaurant, called Ellie's. Like that's just so incredibly divine and so reassuring. And I'm curious what happened after that? What was that chapter, that season of falling in love with yourself? What did that take? What was that work? Was it hard? Were there ebbs and flows? And where are you now?
totally, totally.
Yeah.
Um, you know, 1, I quit drinking the next day,
Mm.
and I haven't had a beverage in almost 4 years.
Congratulations.
Um, so that was the first step for me was,
Mm.
okay, I do not want to be in a position where I'm not living at my highest capacity. I
Mm.
need to focus, things like that.
Yep.
And I'm totally cool with people drinking. I'm totally cool being around it.
Mhm.
I just know myself. And
Right.
part of knowing myself was taking action
Mhm.
and integrating what I know for
Mhm.
me to live at the highest capacity and be the best version of myself.
Mhm.
So I don't knock consumption of alcohol. I don't judge. I just know that that was not right for me.
Mhm. Mhm.
You talked about the body.
Mhm.
I grew up my whole entire life having sweaty palms,
Mm.
sweaty hands. So much so that when I was in college, I would take tests, paper tests, and my hand right here my hands would sweat so much that my hand would rip the paper. The paper that I was writing on would be soaked.
Mm.
And I was so embarrassed, I even went and got Botox in my hands. Doctor recommended, by the way, which is
Wow.
wild. Um, and they would do 88 needles with no like numbing agents or anything in each hand to
Wow.
stop the sweating.
Mm.
That was the
Did
solution.
it work?
It did, but
Mm.
that was the solution when I told them I didn't wanna get on anxiety medicine, I wasn't
Right.
taking K-pins, I was
Mhm.
Klonopins, I wasn't doing
Mhm.
Xanax, like, that was not for me.
Mhm.
My parents unfortunately got addicted to OxyContin when I was 14, so pills for me was out of the question.
Right.
Um, but I was trying these other solutions, and when I made that decision to love myself, when I made that decision to trust myself, I never had sweaty palms. Now, of course, if I'm in this high stress like situation and I'm super nervous, like yeah, my body will sweat, right? Like
Mhm.
that's natural, but I wake up and my palms are dry. I navigate the day and I
Wow.
don't and remember, when I say sweaty palms, I'm not saying just like I'm talking I could hold my fingers like this and sweat would drip off of them.
Wow. Wait, so this went on from your youth, all the way through because this deciding to love yourself did not come until much later.
I was
How
t
old?
yeah, so I was 32.
Wow. So you had that with your palms, the sweaty palm all that time, and then the moment you chose to love yourself,
Yeah, just
that
4 years ago, 4 years ago.
that is unbelievable. What does that say about the body and the mind and the connection and the intelligence? I mean, how do you interpret that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a direct correlation, obviously, because I tried things like Botox one time and realized I didn't want to be, 88 needles in my hand every like 2 months. And I knew it wasn't good for my body doing that and all that
Right.
stuff. Right. So, um, and one of the things too, when I started to love myself was, of course, the mind, but also, um, doing things that were more natural to me, being my aligned self,
Mhm.
being my goofy self, wearing my scally hat cap in Nashville, Tennessee, when no one really wears these. They wear cowboy hats. And,
Right.
going back to
Mm.
the realization that in order to love myself, I need to be myself.
Right.
And being myself will attract the people that are supposed to align and be in my life.
Right.
So, for instance, the scally cap, the reason why I wear it all the time is because when I moved to Boston when I was 28, I threw it in a box. I was like, people don't do this. They don't wear this. I don't know anybody. And at 32, I started to wear it again. I started to wear it on stages. And it wasn't just the material things, it was cracking jokes. It was not having to have the answer. It was, asking questions rather than, dictating all the solutions. It was
Mhm.
speaking later in a conversation rather than first. It was really trying to understand and trust myself that I'm supposed to be in these rooms. I'm supposed to be on these stages. I'm supposed to be on these podcasts. So let me just be me.
Mhm.
And the best part about that, Jen, the best part about the whole thing, the whole transformation was the fact that when I made these decisions, I lost a lot of friends. But what I realized through the process of losing friends or business contracts or relationships was those people were never attracted to the true Jim Morris who loved himself. They were attracted to the image that I tried to be, the
Mhm.
person I tried to portray.
Mhm.
So, anybody going through massive transformation, my message to you would be when you make the decisions to truly align with you and take the risks and do the things that you want to do because it is you, that period of transformation and transition will be hard because the people you think are close to you, the people you think are you're friends with or you're doing business with, they start to see the real you and they may not be attracted to the real you. They may have been attracted to the image or
Mhm.
the person you were trying to portray.
Yeah.
So it's not all, hey, Jim decided to love himself and the world started to open up and everything was great. There was a transformation period where
Yeah.
it was a little dark.
Yeah.
But I knew that I wanted to show up myself, and the best version of me would be full alignment in order
Mhm.
to be the best version for my kids and for my wife.
Yeah. That is, one of the pillars of the emotional intelligence is that self-awareness. That's first. Having that level of self-awareness and then being able to lean into the regulation of our emotions and what we're doing and feeling, which then allows us to be present, which is pillar number 3, which is what you speak about. I mean, you hit on all of them. And truly hit on all of them. I see the wheel in my mind, of these 5 pillars, and that presence that you talk about, that pause, not just for other people to be able to listen and say, "Hey, what's going on for you? How can I support you?" That presence and pause for yourself first. And that's what you did, and that's so beautiful. And then when you can do that, right, then what came alive for you is that 4th pillar, which is that motivation, that excitement about who am I and how do I live and lead and create impact. And then the 5th, being able to do it and get out there in the world and like manage and lead and do your thing. And it's just so beautiful because I don't know if you're aware, but you really um, embody these 5 pillars so beautifully. And I wonder how that, I mean, clearly it's impacted your business, but that's gotta really feel so grounding for you that you're in your body and you know yourself and you've moved through that transformation. And now you're on stage and leading in a whole different way, I would imagine.
100%. I think, you've got to do the work, you've got to integrate, you've got to, have gratitude through the process,
Right.
self-awareness,
Yeah.
but I also think it's it's something that doesn't just come without having someone around you that allows you to navigate the hard times,
Right.
to have the relationships, to have your people, um, to have the person you can call at 3 a.m. when you're struggling with something.
Mhm.
Um, in my TED talk, I talk about everybody should get themselves a Steve,
Oh, is that your
because
person?
Steve has been my best friend since sixth grade,
Mm.
and we're born on the same day, same year.
Wow.
And in those times where you feel the world crumbling, it's not something, it's truly someone. And, there's been plenty of times where I've called Steve, and when I've had the most money on the line and threw my first big conference and hired all my speakers and, literally had every liquid dollar, $240,000 on the line, had no idea what I was doing. My sales team quit, my marketing manager quit, direct correlation of my stress, my unknowing of what I was doing, and
Mm.
I own all that. Um, I called Steve. And, I was just recently married. We just had our daughter. And I thought I was messing up my entire life. And Steve was the one to remind me of every time my back's been against the wall, I've survived. I've navigated through it. And he gave me the pep talk. And I went and I sold 250 conference tickets myself in 31 days.
Mm.
And, did I hit the goal of, 700 tickets? No, but we got 356 people in the room. It was an amazing conference. It was the best investment I've made to date. And it
Mm.
really allowed me to be and jumpstart the process of who I wanted to be and how I wanted to impact people. And that's
Mm.
where my event company, Impact Effect, came from. That's where the podcast is named from, Impact Effect. It was that first conference. And it really was the streamline of everything I do, how I show up, and how I want to impact others.
Mm.
And none of that would have happened in a time of distress and confusion and lack of skill set if Steve wasn't my someone that
Mm.
I needed most.
Oh my gosh. I'm so moved by you and your vulnerability and your self inquiry. And it's so beautiful, really, and such an example because this is what the world needs. And this is exactly what I'm trying to unlock for people on this podcast. We so often, too often, and myself included with my own story, and that's for another time, another day, turn away from ourselves, turn away from the truth of who we are, from the experiences that we've lived because they're too painful. And the truth is there's so many lessons. It's unlocking all of that and being brave enough like you were to really pay attention and allow that wisdom from within guide us, guide you. And I'm just so grateful for your story. I'm so grateful for what you're doing in the world and showing up as this leader. The type of leader that we need, just not in corporate or entrepreneurial, whatever, but as parents, as humans, as coaches, as just human beings walking this earth side by side to be able to stop and say, how are you? What can I do for you? What do you need? Like that's where it all begins, right?
Totally, totally.
Yeah.
And I'll leave you with this, with the last thing with Steve.
Yes, please. I love Steve.
So Steve lives in Boston.
Mhm.
Obviously, I'm in Nashville,
Mhm.
and Steve was navigating some things in Boston, not living, to his capacity,
Mhm.
struggling with some old habits, things like that. And I felt that I needed to repay Steve. I needed to be his gym.
Mm.
So Steve moved in with me 2 weeks ago here in Nashville.
Wow!
He's working for me with Human Touch Publishing.
Oh.
And my 1.5-year-old, when we come home after the workday, uh, he says Steve. He doesn't even say daddy. He's like, "Steve, Steve, Steve." So not only, is he continuing to impact me and my family, but now I have the opportunity to
Mm.
get him more aligned with who he truly wants to be, and
Wow.
and help him
Look
when
at
he
that.
needs it most in this moment today.
Wow.
So it's not just, all the things that I've received, but it's doing the things that I've learned and taking those opportunities to help other people when they
Mhm.
need it most, which I think is just very
So beautiful.
important to realize that, we may be looking inward and be reaching out to people to receive, and we may be going through struggles or dark times or have circumstances that are uncontrollable affecting us.
Mhm.
But I really want your audience to hear the fact that we've got to be looking for the opportunity to help others as well.
Mhm.
And in a lot of cases, and especially in mine, I didn't want to ask for help. When I reached out to Steve and started to reach out to people to help me in that moment where I needed it, it was like God smacked me across the head. I was driving from Boston to York Beach, Maine for a family vacation, and my daughter fell asleep in the back seat.
Mm.
And my wife, and she never does this, she's like, "I'm tired. I'm going to lay down in the back seat." So I'm driving to Maine by myself, thinking about this conference, thinking about all the money that I was about to lose, and how I was messing it all up, and how people quit, and how I wasn't being, my best version of myself, and I was asking God, like, what do I do? Like, what do I need to do? And I looked up. I promise you, I look up, And on an overpass in styrofoam cups, it says, ask for help.
What?
Ask for help. And at that time, I'm like, no way, like, did I just like make that up in my mind?
Wow.
So I counted another 46 overpasses we went by, and there wasn't one sign on the overpass. Um, like I'm talking, how like there's a bridge on the overpass and they have
Yeah.
a fence, so like,
Mhm.
no one can like jump or throw anything off of it. Um, and I'm like, there's got to be like something going on or some messaging or like at least an American flag on the fence because I've seen
Right.
those before.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, there was nothing, no other signs or anything. So when I see that, when I tell that story and I realize how much it pushed me to ask for help, I think there's two people. The person that was Jim before they saw the sign who didn't want to ask for help and was hoping that someone would just come to me and help
Mhm.
me,
Mhm.
or the person post seeing that, realizing that I needed to ask for help. And I think
Mm.
in a lot of ways, most people are the first Jim that isn't asking for help. So a lot of times when I connect with someone, when I get on a call with them or have a cup of coffee or someone makes an introduction or I'm talking to an event organizer, the first question I ask is, and I just did this today when I was on a call with a woman who was someone connected me with, was, what do you need?
Right.
What do you need help with? How
Right.
can I serve you?
Right.
What are you trying to accomplish? What's your dreams? And
Yeah.
what do you need to get to the next stage within your dream?
Right.
So I think a lot of people, including myself, and still to this day, struggle with asking for help. So how can I be the person that positions myself to ask the questions with compassion and
Right.
curiosity for them to tell me what they need, for them to realize they can
Right.
ask me for help?
Mm. That's beautiful. I love that positioning, like that intention, I should say. That intention to know that you know that they might not ask for help because many people don't. They see it as a form of weakness. And then you getting ahead of that to ask the question so that they share with you what they need. Now that is so intentional and so beautiful, and I really appreciate that, and I hope people really catch that because that's a big one. That's a big one. So I appreciate you, Jim. I appreciate you for the work that you are doing in this world, showing up as you are. It's been such an honor to have you here. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for your presence. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to your audience. And
Yes.
I love what you're doing with the show.
Oh,
So
thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Tell us quick before we go, where can people find you and what are you up to? Is there something you want to highlight before we go?
Yeah, check out realjimmorris.com. That's where you can find me. Jim Morris on LinkedIn. Let's connect. Always, loving the conversations that happen in the messaging and
Mhm.
loving on people's content. And then, of course, Real Jim Morris on Instagram, Jim Morris on Facebook. Um, let's connect. Let's
Yeah.
build a relationship.
Love it. Okay, everybody. I'll see you next week on the Wisdom from Within podcast, where human stories awaken the leader from within. Okay. See you next week. Take care. If something in this conversation spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Send it to someone who might need that message too. You can also send me a comment because I would love to know what it is that landed for you. But most importantly, take a moment to pause and listen to what it is that resonated, because that's where your real guidance system lives. The one you can trust, the one you can rely on. See you next week.